Welcome into the college basketball closing line for February 2nd, Saturday, a huge college basketball card. We got Jeff Nadeau, Ian Cameron. I am Drew Martin. We're going to be hitting on as many games as possible, starting with the earlier tips, 12 noon Eastern time, working our way down the card, get as much in as we can. Ian Cameron, follow him on Twitter at Babano. Ian, coming to us from Canada. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great, Drew. Always fun on a college basketball Saturday. Another huge slate of games. Looking forward to breaking them all down.
Looking forward to getting your opinions. And last, certainly not least, follow him on Twitter at Jeff Nadeau. He's the big man on campus, knows the college basketball markets as good as anyone. Welcome in, bud. How are you?
Always good to talk to you, Drew. How you doing today? Ian, good to talk to you as well. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. We got Canada, United States of America, and Costa Rica covered. Guys, make sure to tune in tomorrow for the BetCast for the Super Bowl on the SBR YouTube channel. But let's start off with the top of the card, guys. 12 o'clock slate. Got a big point spread here with the Duke game. St. John's, Duke. Looks like Duke minus 17, 159.5 the total. Big total here, Jeff. You looking to get involved here one way or the other with this kind of large spread here, Duke St. John's?
I'm not really looking to get involved. I mean, I think Duke will, win fairly easily. I would think they'd win closer to 20 points. But, again, I mean, St. John's have shown over the past few years that they've been sometimes able to handle Duke. But that was, again, in Madison Square Garden. This is in Duke. This is in Cameron, so it's a bit different of a game. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about Duke this year that we have to also point out that not only are they so good on offense, they're so athletic, and they have some of the best players in the country all on one team, but they have been totally stout on the defensive end. I mean, this is one of the better defensive teams in the country, and that's what makes them so dangerous long term. I mean, in certain other years, they've kind of been a sieve defensively, or they don't have a point guard or whatever. But this year's team is pretty perfect, to be honest. I mean, there's not a lot to not like about Duke. They're big, they defend, they score at a high level, they have a terrific point guard and fantastic supporting cast. Yeah, I love Duke. I'm just not a big St. John's guy. I've been kind of disappointed with this team all season. I'm not a big Chris Mullen fan. I think he's kind of shit on his leg basically this year. I think it could be a higher scoring game. I think Duke can push 90. I would think St. John's can get to 70. I think this one will go over, but I don't have much in this game.
Okay, it is a high total, but still liking the over. Ian, any opinion here with this big number on Duke or the high total?
Well, let's not forget St. John's beat Duke head-to-head last season when these two teams played. So St. John's has proven they can play with Duke. They have. And in terms of importance, who needs it more perspective? No question St. John's needs it more. I mean, this is a team that's got an absolute ton, of wins, quality wins that they need. I think at this point they're trying to reboot their season, and we'll have to end up seeing if they're able to hang here with this Duke team. It's a hell of a lot of points. The one concern is you got a Duke team that is going to be looking probably to avenge that kind of loss that they had against St. John's. And they're certainly the more talented team. St. John's has been erratic. I mean, how do you figure this team out? They're really, really struggling, and it really got to a head with the loss to Georgetown. And then they got to go on the road against Creighton, tough place to play, tough environment. Even though I'm not a big fan of the Creighton team this year, and they go on the road and absolutely drill Creighton in their last game and play to the type of talent St. John's has. This is a pretty good team. Mustafa Heron, we know Shamari Pons is fantastic for this team. There's a good basketball team here that Chris Mullen has. He just hasn't had them playing consistently, clicking on all cylinders game in and game out. You're going to need to be clicking on all cylinders to hang within this number. But I think from a Duke perspective, it's just a few too many points. It's an early start. See if they're into this game. It's outside. It's one of those weird, again, you're outside of the ACC season for this one time, this non-conference game. Are you focused on it? We'll see. But if I'm betting this game, I'm taking St. John's. I'm not taking Duke.
Okay, good stuff, guys. We got a ranked here in the ACC. Virginia Tech, North Carolina State, 151.5 the total. Looks like NC State -3 home favorites. Ian, coming back at you, I mean, this isn't a big number here with NC State laying in a Virginia Tech team that is very talented. Who would you look to bet in this one?
Well, I give the edge to NC State on their home court. Virginia Tech's off a great win against Syracuse. They pummeled the Orange in that game. So a really good spot it was for Virginia Tech, against that Syracuse team. Syracuse had played just a couple days before. They matched up well against the 2-3 zone because they got the shooters. I mean, Virginia Tech really can score in many different positions on the basketball court. And that's what makes them a very, very dangerous team. NC State's still not a great defensive team. Under Kevin Keats, they're going to play the press. They're going to try to speed this game up, force turnovers. That's their style of game. I do lean NC State a little bit, though, at home. They've been a solid home team most of the season. Play I like more in this game is the total, though. I think it goes over. I'm shocked, actually. We're in the low 150s with this total. Virginia Tech, not quite the blistering pace team that NC State is, but it's such an efficient team offensively. And again, they've got all kinds of guys that can shoot the three ball. They got a good inside-outside game. NC State's not great defensively, whereas NC State's going to be playing fast. That's the way they do. They're at home. They've got very good offensive efficiency numbers, very good shooting, field goal percentage numbers on their home court as well. So I'm very surprised this total is stuck where it is in the low 150s. I thought it should have been more in the high 150s. So I think there's quite a lot of value here to go up and over this total. I like the over a lot here.
Yeah, I think I think Ian brings up some great points. I think there might be value on this over as well. I mean, two talented teams getting up and down the court. What do you think about the total?
Yeah, I mean, the total, I have really questions on this game in general. I mean, Virginia Tech's going to be with that Justin Robinson. That's a big loss for them. I mean, him not playing. I mean, if he plays, I like Virginia Tech and I like them to win. I'm not a big fan of NC State. I did a kind of a mid-season podcast, and I talked about NC State being vastly overrated. I thought their schedule was pretty poor. In fact, it was one of the worst non-conference schedules in the country. And you look at now, I mean, in conference play, they've really just alternated win-loss. Their only wins have come against kind of the bottom tier of the ACC. It's a shame Robinson's out. If he's in there, I'm a lot more interested. And this line's probably not 3. For that reason, it's kind of a pass for me. I think he could really dictate what they do on offense, and I think in turn that could help the total. And the game's just kind of all out of whack at this point, unfortunately. And I just the pace will be there. I think both these teams do play, particularly NC State play with a lot of pace. Virginia Tech more compact, but good on offense as well, very efficient. Without Robinson, though, I think it just kind of throws everything off. So I'm going to avoid this one.
Okay, guys, another big 12 noon Eastern tip here. Oklahoma, West Virginia. I think this is a fascinating handicap, mainly because Oklahoma looked so poor their last time out. West Virginia's kind of been in free fall, especially their half-court offense. Both teams, I'm not really looking to bet on. However, Fade City, that can make money just as well. We got West Virginia laying 3. They are at home, 147.5 the total. Big man, how would you look to kind of get at this Big 12 matchup?
I would grab Oklahoma. I think it's a buy low time on Oklahoma. While they did lose badly in their last game, we have to remember, outside of Kansas, which if you read into lines, that was about as blatant as it gets on West Virginia. Outside of that, this team has lost every game in conference. I mean, this is not a good basketball team. Bolden has been in and out of the lineup. All indications are he's out again today. Konate's still out as well. We have to remember, this West Virginia team's not good offensively with those guys in the lineup. You take out your best point guard out of the lineup, and it's going to be a long day for West Virginia. Are they at home here? Yeah. I mean, I guess they have that working for them, and that's always a good crowd down there. But I like Oklahoma. I look for them to bounce back here. I think they'll be able to handle whatever pressure's thrown at them. Calixte is a guy that I think can handle that. Christian James as well. They've seen this before. I just think for West Virginia this year, it's been a kind of a compliment of they don't have a great team. This pressure stuff works. When it works, it works. But when it doesn't work, it's just not very effective. And we've seen that over the last few games. I mean, you look at Baylor, Tennessee, Iowa State. They have all go back to TCU. They have been shredded on defense. That is basically a problem of they just can't get stops on defense through that press. The press is being broken quickly. And look, they're without the 2 best players. I mean, it's just that easy. I like Oklahoma. I think they bounce back here. I'm still wanting to think that this is a pretty decent team.
And big man, just to come back at you, I mean, under 50 points their last game out against Baylor. Baylor is an efficient defense. You think that was, like you said, just a buy low opportunity, one bad game, you would look for them to bounce back offensively?
I think anytime a team fails to score 50 points, I think you kind of just have to chalk it up to it was a bad game. I'm not going to make excuses for Oklahoma, though. They've not played that well. I mean, they had 2 wins before that against subpar opponents. They really need a little stretch here. They have a tough stretch coming up, but it has to start today. You have to start and go out and get the job done. This defense has been good. Even in that game against Baylor, it wasn't their, it was just they couldn't score. It was that simple. They need to find a way here to figure it out. They've not been great on the road, but I'm hoping they can go on. I just don't really want West Virginia without Beto Bolden. He's a really good player, and he's their point guard. So I'm going to lean Oklahoma. Actually, a pretty good number, 2.5 here.
Yeah, I like that, big man. And that might come to fruition here later in the show in best bets. But Ian, get in here, man. What are you thinking about this Big 12 matchup?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I mean, I wouldn't bet anything other than Oklahoma here in this game. It's a small play for me because I'm not really enamored with the downward trending I'm seeing with the Sooners. I mean, that was pretty bad on Monday night against Baylor at home. Like, I understand struggling defensively, but how on earth on your home court do you get stuck to 47 points against the Baylor Bears at home? It was a woeful shooting night. However, it's still an offensive team, Oklahoma, that's been pretty good for most of the season. But, I think they've got to improve. I mean, 15 of 55 shooting in the loss against Baylor. You got to think there's going to be some regression to the mean, a little correction here in this game as they go on the road against West Virginia. You'd like to think there's a rally the troops effort for West Virginia in them, perhaps. Bob Huggins sort of melted down in that game against Iowa State. I mean, he's got, the first time in a while, a very lousy team. I think he's struggling to cope with it a little bit. The injuries certainly have not helped this West Virginia squad, but they've been blown out soundly in back-to-back games. They have shown up on their home court on occasion. They battled Texas Tech tough in a close loss at home. They did beat Kansas here in Morgantown on this floor. But I don't have a lot of faith in this basketball team. And you can't tell me that right now, talent-wise, especially with the injuries for West Virginia, that Oklahoma's not the better team from a talent perspective right now. And it's not like Oklahoma's coming into this game. And I can't expect Oklahoma to take West Virginia lightly. Not after what happened Monday night against Baylor. That was a terrible loss for Lon Kruger's squad. I'd expect focus. And if you're focused to beat West Virginia these days, you should have a pretty good chance to beat them. So, yeah, I'd be looking at the Sooners here.
That's a good point. I mean, I generally, if I see a team that gets, blown out the game before, generally, and it's basic thinking, but generally you're going to get a better performance. I mean, they're going to obviously want to kind of put that in the rear view, and this is the perfect opponent to get. Luckily, Baylor or Oklahoma has a good schedule here where they're getting West Virginia after that game because this is a game you should be able to go into and really do what you want to do. I think a lot of signs point to Baylor here. Or why do I keep saying Baylor? Oklahoma. Minus the 2.5. I had Baylor on my mind, I guess. Oklahoma here, laying the 2.5. I like this one.
Yeah, they played Baylor and, they had that rough offensive performance. But I'm with you, big man. It's I'm liking this Oklahoma side as well. Guys, in the chat box, we got Alan Atkins saying, hey, guys, February is when college hoops, it's just getting warm. March Madness is on the horizon. Great stuff there, Alan. Yeah, it's a good time to be a college basketball bettor. Bunch on the board today. Guys, is there anything else you wanted to throw out in kind of the noon, 1 p.m. Eastern time slot? Seeing a lot of small games here, stuff that I'm not necessarily involved in. But, big man, are you involved in anything else, noon or 1 p.m. Eastern?
Yeah, I have some interest, maybe very minute interest in the Memphis Tigers a little bit.
Okay.
I've seen this team live. I think they're a fascinating team. I think Penny Hardaway is going to be one of the great coaches ever down the road. But again, we're only in the first year, and he needs to do what he has to do. But he has a pretty decent team. This team plays with a lot of pace. They like to go up and down, and that's really kind of the opposite of what South Florida wants to do. I've discussed South Florida. Not only do they turn the ball over at a high level, but they're one of the worst free throw shooting teams in the country. They can really keep teams in games. And Memphis is going to slash. They want to get to the hoop. They want to get to the line. That's kind of their MO on offense. This could be an interesting one. I think anytime South Florida lays points outside of against like Wichita or someone like that, I'm interested. Memphis, very small shot that they could make a run. But in this conference, there's always games that you could win to make it look good for yourselves. I think Memphis is in a good spot today to go down to South Florida and maybe grab a win. I always wondered why South Florida is in Tampa, because it's not really South Florida, but whatever. I'll take Memphis +2. Kind of a not a big play, not a heavy play, but something that I do have some interest in. I think they're a pretty decent team. And one thing I always love about Memphis is I always love seeing what sneakers Penny's rocking on the sidelines. He always has a crisp pair of something on, whether it's a foam posit or a Jordan, whatever. He's always very stylish. I'll tell you what, guys, Penny Hardaway is one of my heroes. Seeing him in the flesh the other week was a highlight of my life. He's a true – he's just one of those guys where you see him and you're just like, wow. I'm in awe of that guy. Like, that's Penny Hardaway. He was in Blue Chips. He was, with Shaq on the Magic. Like, he's, But I'm boring you all. Yeah, I would lead Memphis. I think they have a decent shot to win today down at South Florida.
Big man, you're not boring me at all. I know exactly what you're saying. Just when he was at his highlight, we were kids and watching him play. It was a good time to watch him rock out in the NBA. Ian, get in here, man. What are you thinking about this South Florida Memphis game? And Big Man brought up the point that Memphis is going to drive to the basket. They're going to get fouled. South Florida, by the way, I believe they're number 4 in the nation in percent of points coming off of the free throw line. This is going to have a lot of foul calls. There's going to be a lot of stoppage time. I actually like the over in this. Ian, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with Drew here. I'm not much on the side. I'm very reluctant to step in front of South Florida. I've had a big not an affinity with this team, but I've liked them. I've backed them a couple of times this season. I think they're a much improved team. Brian Gregory's doing a good job there with that program. They're much improved. See if they can take care of Memphis. But I prefer the total in this game. I'm actually one of the few guys that back in the day called him Anthony Hardaway, his actual birth given name.
I remember that.
Instead of Penny, but everybody knows him as Penny Hardaway, and he's doing a good job. Like, he's getting much better recruits. Let's be honest. I mean, he's recruiting at a higher level now at Memphis since he's been there as head coach. People want to play for the guy. That's why he's recruiting better. I mean, it's for Penny Hardaway. I want to play for him as my head coach. I mean, it's pretty obvious to see why Memphis might be getting a little higher quality of athlete since he's been there. But yeah, I think there's going to be overs. By the way, you talk about this game maybe having a lot of fouls. These AAC refs this year are foul crazy. They're whistle crazy. It's sickening to see how bad some of the officiating is in AAC basketball. It's awful. It's a foul every 20 seconds. Can I get a possession without a damn foul? A ticky-tack little, I hit the guy with my finger. My pinky finger hits the guy. Foul. Come on. Stop with this nonsense. It's ridiculous. I mean, too many fouls in this conference. Too many. But hey, if as a bettor, take advantage of it. Look for some opportunities with over the total for teams that foul a lot, for teams that go to the free throw line a lot. Look for opportunities in this conference to go over the total. Certainly Memphis, what are they going to want to do in this game? Speed it up, play with pace, try to force some turnovers. Watch South Florida. South Florida, it fouls a lot. They don't play with at the same pace, but they're a much improved offensive team. I like some of the pieces here on this South Florida group. No question about that. They can score the ball better than they have in past seasons. Yeah, Drew, I think you're making some sense here with this game over the. It's getting hit as we speak. Unfortunately, it was 148. I'm seeing 150 now. It's going up as we speak. So people seeing what we're seeing, that we might see some points in this game.
Yeah, it's not a secret anymore. The ACC or the AAC, like you said, Ian, is foul happy. Big man, would you take over or under 50 free throw attempts in USF Memphis?
Yeah, I would lean over. I think, and that's high, but I mean, Memphis is very reliant. They love getting to the line. That's a lot of their offense. And Ian talked about South Florida. It's interesting that they're so reliant on getting to the foul because they don't make their free throws. They're not a good shooting team from the line. Riddell is but the only guy that you could trust. But yeah, the officials in this conference are horrendous. I've seen them up close and personal many times. They're terrible. Guys, I actually kind of like the early slate. There's a couple games that I have my eye on as well. This is kind of a small game, but I don't know if there's a bigger fan in America for Lehigh than me. I've been on Lehigh a couple times this year, and I was on them the other night in a free play facet. Lehigh is, guys, got a guy. Okay, I'm going to tell you about him right now because he's my spirit animal. If I was a 6 foot one white guy that was a little taller and a little skinnier, They have a guy named Jordan Cohen, okay? I want you to get to know Jordan Cohen. Jordan Cohen is killing it right now, is the best word for it. He scored 65 points over his last 2 games. He scored 33 and 32 over the last 2 games. The kid's killing it right now. You put him on a team that already has some real talent, and Brett Reed has a pretty good team up at Lehigh. Defensively, they've gotten a bit better. They're playing an Army team today that has had some problems on the defensive end. Lehigh, the number 1 team in the country in 3-point percentage. They're at 45%. They really fire away. And Army has some trouble here. You know, I never like betting against the armed forces, but I'll tell you what, I like this Lehigh team. They're in a pick'em situation today. You know, I just don't love Lehigh on defense, and that's kind of one of my reservations here, but they are playing at a very high level offensively right now. This Jordan Cohen kid, I tell you guys, the other night, he's a junior. If he can have a good senior year, it wouldn't surprise me if he finds his way into the draft. This kid is really impressive. He is fantastic to watch. He's got a great jump shot, impressive player. I like that one. Also kind of like 775, 776. I like that game over the number, Wofford Citadel. Citadel, as we know, are one of the worst defense in the country. They go very fast. Wofford put up 110 last time these 2 teams played. We know Wofford with Fletcher McGee, they should have a field day scoring on this dreadful Citadel defense. I think Citadel can do some good things as well in offense. I think this is one of their stronger teams in a while as far as offensively. Should be able to put up 70, 75 here. I think this game gets over the number. It's not particularly high. Thought it'd be a bit higher after the first game. I'll go over and Citadel Wofford.
Good stuff, big man. And Ian, did you want to throw out anything else on the noon or 1 p.m.-ish slate?
Yeah, 2 games. I'm going to take Rutgers plus 10 against Ohio State. I'm seeing some signs of life from Rutgers the last few games. I mean, they're playing good, playing better, playing competitive basketball. This Rutgers team. Again, I said all along, I like Steve Peichel. I just think it's a lot of points now for Ohio State to be laying in this game, a scuffling Ohio State team that really hasn't put things together in this conference. And Rutgers, you know, not an easy team to blow out right now. You know, they're playing competitive basketball. They're coming off, you know, a couple of wins, albeit Penn State and Indiana. But even against some of the other teams, they've managed to hang in games, play solid defense, trying to play a little bit quicker on offense and help their offense maybe get some more transition buckets. That's something they've really emphasized, but Ohio State's certainly going to oblige a little bit with that. So I think Rutgers getting a few too many points there. I'll take my chances with them. Plus 10, you know, they've already been on the road facing the likes of Purdue, and I believe they faced Michigan State on the road as well. I mean, they've faced some tough teams on the road. Ohio State's not in that same class. This is a game that I think Rutgers, in theory, has the capability of handling. So I'm going to look at Rutgers plus 10. And I was dead wrong on Georgia and Arkansas was one of my plays the other night. Oh, wrong on it. Unfortunately, you know, it was just a bad shooting night for both teams. What can you do? But I'm going to look at Georgia and South Kakalaki over in an early game today. Georgia's back home. They've shot the ball better at home. You know, there's still a team that struggles a little bit on the defensive side of the floor. It's been a problem for them. You know, they did neutralize Arkansas pretty well, even though they came up short on the scoreboard. But when you look at Arkansas, that's not a great offensive team by any stretch. They've had some issues shooting the basketball. It's weird to see South Carolina playing the way they are this year. I mean, Frank Martin teams going back to when he was at Kansas State all those years ago, very methodical pace, defensive-minded, tough, would have trouble scoring at times. It's like the polar opposite with South Carolina this year. They're scoring points in bunches, and they're not stopping anybody. You know, there's no defense, none, zero. I can't believe it. They're a horrible defensive team right now, South Carolina. It's really stunning to see this from a team coached by Frank Martin, because defensive principles, going back to when he was at Kansas State, were a big thing with him, and it has been a hallmark of his teams every single season. Not with this group. They're not dependent at all right now, and that's a problem here, but they are scoring. That's the good news. The one concern with the over, it's something that I'm waiting on news on. There's a couple players that could be out for South Carolina. Keyshawn, the forward, is one. He got injured against Tennessee the other night, left the game, questionable to play. Frank Martin said he's probably going to be a game-time call. Losing him would be big because he's a double-digit scorer for this South Carolina team, and he's filling in for someone that's already injured at that position. So I'd like to see him play. I'd like the over more. Even if he doesn't, I'd still probably go in that direction and go over the total. It's about 150.5, 151 in that game.
All right, Ian, good stuff on the early games, guys. Hey, I just want to move down a little bit to a 2 p.m. Eastern tip. I think it's fascinating handicap. I want to lay a big number with a team that runs slow pace, which is always a tricky handicap here. In the ACC, I'm going to Miami, Virginia. I'm liking the Wahoos minus 18 here, and it's mainly because it's as much of a fade on Miami. They've lost 7 of 8 in the ACC, 4 straight outside of Wake. It's tough to find competitive games against good competition. Virginia is a defense that, one of the most efficient defenses in the country. The way that they play, they just, pound you down. Miami traveling to Charlottesville. This is a tough matchup for the Canes. Big man, talk me off of Virginia minus 18. Are you liking it as well?
Yeah, I'm not going to talk you off it. I've been no stranger to betting Virginia this year. Miami is a bad basketball team, a team that, you never like to see Miami bad. I like Jim Larinaga, nice guy, always seems like he has a good team. But yeah, you're right. Outside of Wake, I mean, they haven't won a game, and you look at these games, they're not close. I mean, they're losing every game by wide margins. I mean, they lost to Syracuse by 20. Syracuse lost to Louisville by 17. I mean, it's not been a good season for the Miami Hurricanes. And again, now you got to go on the road and take on the number 1 defense in the country where, you've had trouble scoring all year. I'll tell you what, I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea also, Drew, to maybe consider a first half play here. I mean, 10.5, not terrible. I could see this, I don't know, 33-16 at the half or something. But yeah, I mean, Virginia shouldn't have any trouble pulling away here. It wouldn't surprise me if they win, 72-48, something like that. I think Miami, per usual, will have trouble scoring. I hate to be basic here with the breakdown, but it's very simple. I don't think Miami can score, and I think Virginia will do a hell of a job defending here. It's amazing how good Virginia really is on defense. Number 1 in every category defensively in conference. I mean, they are just terrific. They don't let you rebound the ball. That's another thing about Miami that you got to worry about. Miami is pretty much one of the worst rebounding teams in this league. They're only getting an offensive rebound on 25% of their possessions. Virginia really curtails you on defense and doesn't let you get rebounds. So I think Virginia should run away here. I thought this line would close closer to 20, not 18. I would lay it as well.
That's what I had it at, 20 coming into it. So that's why I jumped,
And Drew,
on Virginia. Yeah.
Miami allowing opponents to shoot 39% from 3 in conference, 55% from 2 in conference, and 76% from the line. Not only are they getting shredded on defense, but as we talked about, they can't score right now. This one could get ugly.
Absolutely. Good point on the 3-point defense. That's something that tends to stay the same. Ian, jump in here, man. You think this line is a little short for Virginia?
Well, we got the 2nd-ranked defensive efficiency team in the country, Virginia, and the 148th in Miami. So you're talking about a huge difference here when you're looking at defensive acumen. And, I'd be worried about going against Virginia today because they escaped with a win against NC State the other night. Although you can't blame the defense. They had a terrible shooting night. They really struggled offensively to get comfortable against Kevin Keatts' pressure, full court pressure. I mean, that's exactly what happened to Virginia. But the defense was still solid in that win against NC State on the road earlier this week. They just didn't shoot the ball well and didn't play fluid offensively. Well, Miami's defense is going to look night and day in terms of the pressure style compared to what NC State threw at them. So I think Virginia back home, they're going to shoot better. DeAndre Hunter's going to shoot better. You're going to get better play from Ty Jerome. Kyle Guy will bounce back and play better. So everybody, I think, is going to shoot better here in this game for Virginia. And then on the flip side, you look at Miami. Offensively, they've been nails on a chalkboard to watch. I mean, it's been really, really difficult to see this team, put together strings of offense during games. They go through scoring droughts, at least 1 or 2 pretty much in every game. And some of these droughts they go through offensively are long. Like they could go 5-6 minutes without a bucket in some games. That's happened to Miami multiple times this season. Yeah, I mean, Virginia, because they had such a escape the other night, a close win against NC State, Tony Bennett might use that as a kick in the pants and say, hey, we got to play better than that if we're going to keep winning games moving forward and be the team we want to be. So you would think Virginia, even though they're off a win, a close win, I don't know if they're satisfied with that close win. I think they know they can play better than that. that could be bad news for Miami. I'm with everybody else here. There's no way I want to back Miami, even getting all these points. It's Virginia or nothing.
All right, well, sounds like the Cavs today at 2 p.m. Eastern. Another 2 p.m. Eastern ACC tip here. Ranked first ranked UNC, Louisville 158 the total. Louisville 1.5 at home. I'm not involved in this one, Ian. You involved here in the UNC Louisville game?
I'm going to do something I almost never do. Usually when a team is playing with revenge like North Carolina is playing with serious revenge here. Louisville didn't just beat them at Chapel Hill earlier this season. They smacked them. They destroyed them. They annihilated North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And normally I want to back the team that lost the previous meeting. I'm not going to do that. In fact, I'm going to back Louisville here. I love this Louisville team. I think they're playing great. I think they've got the better of these two coaches, to be honest with you. I love the job Chris Mack's doing with this Louisville team. North Carolina is going to want to avenge that loss. But, I can now look at Louisville here in this game as a home underdog. I don't buy that here against this North Carolina team. I think this could end up being the better basketball team, I think, when the ACC season concludes. North Carolina still has those games where they don't really look right. They look erratic. I know they've had a couple nice games in a row. They pummeled Virginia Tech at home. They absolutely bludgeoned Georgia Tech on the road in their last game. Louisville ain't Georgia Tech, all right, on the road. All right, you're going to be facing a very good Louisville basketball team here. Again, it's a revenge spot. I'm sure that's a big reason why North Carolina is taking some of the money here in this game. They see it. North Carolina got buried at home by Louisville earlier this season, but this is one of those times I'm willing to overlook the revenge angle. I just think Louisville's flat out better. I can get them catching points at home. Sign me up.
Big man, you got anything on UNC Louisville?
Yeah, I think he's onto something here. I mean, I think there's a lot of points in this game. I'll tell you why. The problem that Louisville poses to UNC is UNC prefers, like, if you look at the way they play offense, they prefer to put Luke May at the 4. And he's had issues. You look at all the games that they played where he has to play an athletic 4 or 5, and he's struggled in those games. It's just that simple. They want to play him at the 4, and he's had issues. The truth of the matter, though, is if Luke May plays well on offense, they win. They're 7-1 this year when Luke May scores 15 or more points. In that game against Louisville, he only had 9. So he's been ineffective on both sides against Louisville, defensively and offensively. They also struggle with other players that Louisville can throw at them. Sometimes, guys, it's just a bad matchup against a team. And I'll tell you right now, UNC does not want to see Louisville in the ACC tournament. And they won't see him. They could see him in the tournament, which if they do, it's going to be a problem. I just don't think Louisville is a good matchup for UNC. But I do think we see some points here. You look at in that game against the Tar Heels or against Louisville, the Tar Heels were, I think, 3 for 22 from 3. Since then, they have been like 50%, like over like 4 or 5 games. They've been killing it from the 3-point line. I think we can see some points in this game. That's, I think, one of the reasons total is so high. I think both teams will have a lot of success on offense here. I think UNC is a better team than they were in that first game, but it still doesn't negate the problems that they have schematically against Louisville.
Good stuff on that UNC Louisville game, guys. Hey, what about this Nebraska-Illinois game? We got 649, 650, 215 Eastern tip here. This fade Nebraska train, it's real, big man. I mean, yeah. Louisville's all the way down to 3, or excuse me, Illinois all the way down to 3 right now. This isn't a great Illinois team, but is this number too short in your opinion?
Yeah, I think you're starting to get to that point. I mean, sometimes you got to be willing to say, okay, when is enough enough? When is a team going to say, well, let's grab our balls and let's go win a road game? Illinois, I respect. I respect what Brad Underwood's built there in a short time. He's not built enough, but they're a good offensive team. They try hard. They put in a ton of effort. But let's be honest, guys, they're just not very good on defense. I don't want to get started on Nebraska because it might be here for a while. Tim Miles needs to be fired. I don't know what else to say about it. This is pathetic at this point. I mean, losing these games, shitting on your leg every time you have a big season. When will this administration understand that Tim? But again, then I look at why he's still there. Well, because Nebraska basketball is not a high-end proposition, and I guess he's been okay, but Tim Miles is just a nice guy. You're not going to ever win anything with him. And with the team that he has right here, they should be winning games. They should be right at the top of the Big Ten. They should be challenging to definitely get into the tournament. They're in danger of not making it at this point. They've lost 6 of 8. The only wins have come against Penn State and Indiana, 2 teams that are struggling. What is going on right now with Nebraska? But then I look at them in this game and I say, it's kind of like Oklahoma in a way. This is a good spot to go win a game at. I like Illinois. I think they have a good home court advantage, and I like what they could do trying to turn it over. But, I mean, here's the problem. Nebraska is 16th in the country in turnover percentage committed. They don't turn the ball over. I think that's going to be a problem for Illinois when they can't force turnovers and have to play defense, for 13, 14, 20 seconds. That's not what you want. I think Illinois has some trouble in this game. If there's a must-win today, this is it. You cannot lose to Illinois. Therefore, I'll think Nebraska comes to play here. I don't like Tim Miles, but if I have to give a breakdown, I'll root for Nebraska here.
All right, big man, liking Nebraska. This is a fascinating handicap, Ian. I kind of think it's like grabbing a falling knife, though. If you're looking at betting Nebraska, it's a tough bet. That's the way I would look at it. I just don't know if there's enough there with this Illinois team. Like Big Man said, are they good enough to cover this short number? What's your opinion here on this Big Ten matchup?
Yeah, I can't touch Nebraska. Isaac Copeland's a big deal. Not having him. That injury's killed them, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you look at the body language on the court; it's terrible. As soon as a run happens against them, there's no response. There's no leadership on the bench, and that's sad. You've got a Glenn Watson. You've got a very, very James Palmer. You've got a very, very experienced team, and I'm not seeing those guys bring this team together and put their heads on straight and say, "Let's go. Let's get after it." I know Copeland's out, and Copeland's a loss because he's an impact player at both ends of the court for this Nebraska team, and another senior on this team. And without him, they've looked disjointed. They haven't gotten into their offense crisply. The defense has suffered big time. I mean, this has been a team that's really struggled on the defensive end of the court in recent weeks, and even against some teams that, they shouldn't be struggling defensively against, like Rutgers when they lost that game recently. So there's problems with Nebraska. I can't lay points with them on the road. Illinois, though, the one time I backed them, they got destroyed, I think, by Iowa, and I've been trying to make a case for them in a couple of games, and it hasn't worked out. They're erratic. They hung for a half against Minnesota the other night and then let it go, and then they ended up getting drilled after that. They won against Maryland last Saturday. Who the hell saw that coming in Maryland? Illinois wins that game. It's a very, very schizophrenic group right now. Brad Underwood was the right hire. He's going to be good in time. He's going to get the program improved in time. But as Jeff said, still going to take some time. This is a really, really tricky game for me. I'm staying out of it.
Guys, before we get to Kentucky, Florida time slot here, a little later in the afternoon, any mid-afternoon games you guys want to throw out before we move down the card?
I think Hofstra Northeastern's interesting. A lot of people ask about that. Hofstra has the longest winning streak in America. I think it comes to an end today, though. This is a tough game up in Boston against Northeastern. Northeastern took them right down to the wire in Long Island a couple weeks ago, 75-72. Northeastern is a good basketball team. Bill Cohen is a good coach. He runs a lot of ball screen offense with Vasa Pusica, a very good player, a senior player. He is terrific. This was a terrific game the first time they played. I feel like odds makers are kind of baiting you here. You look at this number. They're a pick 'em. They've won 16 in a row. I don't know, kind of a concern for me here. I think, and it's no shame if Hofstra lose. I still think they're the best team in this conference. I think it's almost good if they lose at some point. I hate teams that go undefeated. I think any team should lose before they go into their conference tournament, especially in a conference like this. It wouldn't surprise me if Hofstra lose today. I would look towards Northeastern. I think they're good enough offensively. These teams are pretty similar, actually. They have two great players that could take games over. They both make their free throws. They're both average defensively. This should be a great game, but I'll give the home team the advantage here. Could be the difference here. I think today the win streak ends for the Hofstra Pride up at Northeastern. And you look at after this game, they may not lose again. Hofstra doesn't have a real bad schedule. Maybe Charleston away, but other than that, I think this is the day. I really do. I think it'd be good for them anyway. They will obviously won't try to lose, but I don't think it's the worst if they do. I think Northeastern wins today.
Nice. Good. Colin Hofstra's first loss. I like it, big man. Ian, you got anything here? Maybe Mississippi State Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl or anything else mid-afternoon?
Yeah, it's actually funny you mentioned that game, Egg Bowl basketball style. I bet side and total in this game. Ole Miss, I like them at home here. I haven't seen enough from Mississippi State in this game on the road lately. They've had some really, really stinkers on the road. And really, other than beating Auburn at home, which was a really great spot for them last Saturday, they've struggled on the road, this Mississippi State basketball team. They got crushed by Bama the other night, lost to Kentucky on the road, not playing very good defense, particularly on the road. Once again, it's been an issue for the Bulldogs here as of late. Ole Miss has struggled too. I mean, they got crushed at home by Iowa State in the Big 12 SEC Challenge last weekend, and they lost, I know, to Florida the other night. They did cover the number, fortuitous for me because I was on them there in overtime, but they're also having their issues defensively. I mean, Kermit Davis has had some problems with this group getting stops, but they can score. Quindaria Weatherspoon, of course, on the Mississippi State side, is a very prolific scorer. I just think, though, when push comes to shove, Ole Miss really needs a win. They're at home. This is a more manageable opponent. I like the effort, the fight from Ole Miss in the game against Florida, even though it was a real tough overtime loss. They should have won the game, period. I mean, they had the lead late, stupid foul on a three-point shooter, allows Florida to tie the game, get to overtime, and then Florida wins that game. Should have won that game, but positive signs that Ole Miss played well enough in that game. Should have won it. I think they get the win today. I think it's a higher scoring game, too. I like Ole Miss and over the 149.5.
Nice, Ian. And Big Man, what about you? Anything in Ole Miss, Mississippi State, or maybe Texas Tech, Kansas, the other big game this time slot?
Yeah, I think today it's a pretty big game for Texas Tech. I think, I'm not saying Kansas circled the drain or anything, but they're struggling right now. I don't know how else to say it. It's just a team that has to figure it out. I bet against them the other night with Texas. I thought it was a nice spot for the Longhorns. If I'm getting 4 points here today, I'm going to take the better defense. I think Chris Beard's as good as it gets. I think he's one of those guys that he'll never be regarded as the best coach in the country just because of all these old relics you still have around, and Bill Self and Krzyzewski and all those guys. But I think he's as good as it gets. I mean, defensively, he's fantastic. This will be an interesting battle. I think Dietrich Lawson could have a decent game. I just need to get something out of Texas Tech down low. I mean, give me something, Odiasi. Give me something against Lawson. Just throw him off a little bit. I think if he can do that, they're going to have a big shot in this game. They're good enough defensively. Matt Mooney is starting to play a little bit better. They're going to need him long term if they want to win games. In the tournament, he's put up 30 points over the last 2 games, which is a big. Here's the thing: when Matt Mooney plays well, Texas Tech wins. Look at the last 2 games; he's played well. Look at the previous 3 games; he didn't play well, and they lost all 3. Look at the previous 4 games; played well, they won. When he plays well, they win. It's not Culver. Culver's going to always be terrific. They need to get another scorer, and he's been it. You throw him in with Moretti, you have 2 real good shooters on this team. I like Texas Tech. I've been pretty high on them, and I think they'll go in, and I think they'll really suffocate the Jayhawks. I don't know if they'll win, but I think game's close.
Yeah, I think they stay within this number. I mean, there's problems in Lawrence, big man. They've lost 3 of 4. They scored 64 or less in all 3 losses. I think they're going to have a tough time scoring here. I like Texas Tech plus the points as well. Big man, one here for you in the SEC in Gainesville, Kentucky at Florida, 2.5. That's the Wildcats laying on the road, 131 the total. I'll tell you, I just think Kentucky athleticism, their length on defense, Hagen's on-ball defense. I think Florida, who in my opinion, doesn't have a lot of offensive weapons. I think they struggle here. I like Kentucky to go into Gainesville and cover this short number. You got any opinion here, Wildcats and Gators?
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of waiting for Kentucky at some point to kind of look young and lose a game. But, I think for them this year, the big glue guy for them is Reed Travis. They haven't had a guy like this ever, I don't think, under Calipari. It's always been freshmen. That's always what it's been. And you look at this year, they haven't fell apart. I think a lot of it has to do with Reed Travis. Reed Travis is a senior. He comes over from Stanford. He gives you some great minutes, but he's also a senior. It's kind of like what Kyle Wiltshire was able to do a couple years ago with Gonzaga. He was the glue guy. He had already won. He had played at high levels before when he was at Kentucky. He goes to Gonzaga and really feeds into the whole thing of, not that these guys need to know how to win because they're all very good players, but Reed Travis brings you that veteran mentality, and we haven't seen them fall apart. I mean, how many years have we seen where Kentucky looks so good and then they lose on the road to South Carolina or something? They haven't had that. You thought maybe it'd be Vandy. They crushed Vandy. They've taken care of business every time they've had to. I think a lot of it has to do with him. But in this game, I agree with you. I think Florida can struggle. Florida has some decent players, Kayvon Allen and guys like that. But, for the most part, they've been fairly disappointing this year. I like what I'm seeing out of Kentucky. I'm not really looking to step in front of this group right now. Not a game I'm going to be really interested in, but I think Kentucky will get it done here. They've not fallen apart. It's been impressive.
Yeah. Big man's leaning Kentucky. I like Kentucky. Ian, you got any opinion here, Wildcats and Gators?
Yeah, Kentucky make it a clean sweep. I'm looking at Kentucky or nothing here. I cashed against Florida the other night with Ole Miss. Overtime loss there, but they covered the number and defeat Ole Miss. I'm not in love with this Florida team. I don't think this is a great group by any stretch. I know Kayvon Allen's a good player. Beyond that, there's not a lot I like, to be honest. I'm being brutally honest about this Florida team. I haven't really loved this team talent-wise all season long. It continues to be that way. They're not quite the same defensively. Hell, they should have lost against Ole Miss. They gave up 86 points, and the game never should have went to overtime. But Ole Miss had a brain fart at the end, and that's what allowed that game to go to overtime. So a very lucky win for Florida. Now you're going to have to play against a team that does play a lot better defense, that being Kentucky. The way they're locking in right now teams defensively, locking them down, it's pretty damn impressive. I mean, they've now gone several games in a row where they look like one of the better defensive teams in the entire country. And that's going to be problems here, I think, for Florida, even on their home court. We have seen Kentucky go on the road, take care of business lately. Remember, road issues have been the past. You're right. The road issues for Coach Cal's teams the last few years have been there. Not so much lately. Remember, they hammered Georgia recently on the road. They picked up some good road wins as of late. They beat Auburn on the road recently as well. Kentucky's finding ways to win road games this year, particularly of late. I think they can do away with this Florida team. I like the Cats.
Good stuff, boys. And guys out there, if you're liking the content, please give us the like button. It helps us out a lot. Big man, did you want to, or Ian, did you guys want to lock in any noon best bets here before we open it up to the night card?
Yeah, I think Lehigh is a good play. I think they go in and beat Army. I think Oklahoma's worth a look here as well. I don't have any best bets. I don't have any plays in this card that I sent out. I'm not normally a big 12 o'clock guy. I've talked about that before. Lead Oklahoma. Maybe Memphis. But the only one I really kind of like is Lehigh. I think Lehigh is worth a look. They should be able to beat Army.
Okay, big man liking Lehigh on the 12 o'clock slate, but it's not his best bet for the show. Ian, what about you? Did you want to lock in for any noon games?
Yeah, noon games, just lighter. Oklahoma, worth a look, I think. Rutgers, worth a look. I really like the Virginia Tech NC State over, though, 151, 152. I think that flies over that number. So we'll lock that in as a noon best bet.
Okay. And Ian, coming back at you, man, did you want to, on this night slate, there's some good games. Did you want to throw anything out there, the 7, 8, 9 o'clock tips?
Yeah, the late games. Let me see. Evening games. We've got our LSU has been a team I've been taking over the total every game. They're playing Arkansas at home tonight. The total's in the 150s. You're going to get pace on both sides. Arkansas plays fast. LSU plays fast. LSU has been incredibly good offensively, especially on their home court in Baton Rouge. They've scored 80 and 90 every home game in SEC play. Arkansas defense is not really going to do a whole lot, I think, to challenge them. Not when you I think LSU is pretty decent in terms of being able to avoid that turnover style that Arkansas tries to force on you. Tremont Waters has been excellent for LSU this season for Will Wade's team. You're going to get, again, a brisk pace on both of these teams, both of these sides. The one concern is Arkansas. Man, they're sketchy offensively at times. They really, really are. We see them go in and out of droughts, but LSU is going to allow you to score some points against them. They're not a lockdown defensive team by any stretch, so I do kind of think we see points there. Would look over the total with Arkansas and LSU. Syracuse, I'm kind of looking at Syracuse laying the 3 against Pitt. Pitt, starting to really hit a wall. I mean, that was not a bad loss because Clemson was in a good spot the other night. Clemson was off a few losses in a row, a perfect storm, back home, and they just wiped the floor with Jeff Capel's Pitt Panthers team. I think Pitt's starting to hit a wall, starting to see, the effort was there. They're playing quicker, a little more enthusiasm with this team this year than under Stallings, but talent's starting to rise to the top, or in this case, with Pitt not rise to the top. I mean, they're starting to scuffle a little bit, starting to leak oil. That could be a problem here against Syracuse that I think is going to be chomping at the bit to have a very strong game here in this one. Again, laying points with Syracuse on the road is not usually something I like to do, but they're really starting to hit a big-time physical and mental wall a little bit, this Pitt team. And I don't think they're going to have much success offensively facing this 2-3 zone, which can really, really stick into teams that are not exactly gifted from an offensive perspective. That would be Pitt. So I think Syracuse has a chance to take care of business there.
Big man, what games did you want to throw out on the night slate before we get to best bets?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple I have my eye on. I think UNLV is dead money right now. This team sucks. I mean, Marvin Menzies is lost it. I don't know how they're going to go on the road to Utah State and stay competitive. I mean, Utah State have been destroying teams. They've been terrific on offense, very good on defense. UNLV's just right now they're just kind of in an identity crisis, guys. They basically have no front court, so they've had to go very small, play small ball. All they're doing is just shooting threes. That's all they do. They have no real identity on offense. They've had some real tough travel spots too. I mean, I bet against them the other night. I had Nevada. I don't know if any of you guys heard, but some nut job got loose and went into their airport where their team plane was, and basically flooded the plane. Yeah, and they had to bus back from San Diego through the desert back to Nevada. Then they had to play the best team in the conference by a wide margin. They got run out of the gym. Now they got to travel over to Logan on that plane and take on Utah or Utah State here. It's just Logan's a tough place to play. That's a great atmosphere. They've had the good home coach student section for a long time there at the Dean Glenn Smith Center. I think UNLV is kind of foiling the plot right now. I think they're all over the place. Maybe a good spot to bet against them. Maybe a first half option there, so you don't have to lay the big number. I think Utah State should come out pretty focused in this game. I don't know if I'm ready to give up on St. Louis yet. Rhode Island hasn't shown me a ton. I haven't been impressed with this group. Obviously, losing their coach this year, that's no surprise. They have a good group of guards. Jeff Doughton, Fats Russell, but St. Louis does too. And St. Louis has a pretty good interior that I'm not sure that Rhode Island can match. St. Louis has been pretty disappointing over the last 2 weeks. Lost to Davidson. Lost over the week to Richmond. I don't know what that was all about. And they got to go on the road here. But I think if I'm getting 4 points, I think in a low-scoring game, I'll lean with the Billikens. I think they could be a real big force down low tonight. I'm not really sure how you lay 11, 12 points at West Kentucky. I don't think they don't generally win any game by double digits. SMU Cincinnati's interesting. Cincinnati's starting to play some real good basketball, but there is chinks in their armor. They didn't look great against Temple. They had to fight back and kind of, Temple just blows leads every game. So that's not a big surprise. And they were kind of able to come back in that game. But yeah, I mean, some great games today. I definitely have my eye on plenty of them. But I would definitely look on kind of fading UNLV. I think right now there is just way too much going on with this team, and none of it's good.
Good stuff, big man. Guys, you ready to get into big best bets?
Yeah. I mean, what about you, Drew? What's your bet? Why don't you start out with best
bets? I do want to actually mention one thing about the late slate. One last thing, then we'll get to best bets. Jeff mentioned about the UNLV team, and I see it on Twitter. Obviously, I'm a bettor. I'm a handicapper. So is Jeff. So is Drew. We follow a lot of people that are in Las Vegas on Twitter, people that are UNLV fans that want to see the team do well. And their gripes are legitimate. They say, I'm seeing so many of the same thoughts about this UNLV team on Twitter, saying all this team does is run up the court, one pass, jack up a three, regardless of whether it's a good look or not, and then not get back on defense at all at the other end of the court. That's UNLV. If you've been watching them most of the season. How do you think that's going to work out if you're Marvin Menzies playing against one of the better teams in the country, one of the better offensive teams in the country like they did against Nevada the other night? Not good. Yeah, let's run up the court. Let's play fast, which is playing into Nevada's hands because that's the way they want to go. Jack up a three, a bad shot. Can't get our defense set. We don't get back quickly enough against a team that likes to push the basketball, Nevada. How do you think that game's going to work out for you? Yeah, not good. And that's exactly what happened for UNLV. You can see why they're frustrated. It's like Marvin Menzies doesn't have the game plan, a good game plan, night in, night out with this UNLV team. What's happened to the guy that was at New Mexico State? Maybe he's just a guy that should go back there. Maybe he's just not ready to cut out to be in a little bit of a bigger conference or bigger program. But it's been a disaster there. I'm with Jeff. I'm looking at the total's getting hammered too. I don't know how if for UNLV, you bet against them and you bet the over. You really just do those two things night in and night out with UNLV until they show you something different, especially when they go on the road. How Air Force put 100 spot. They hit the century mark against UNLV. Air Force, when UNLV went on the road recently. Yeah, Utah State's going to score points. I know Utah State doesn't play fast, but they're going to score points. They're still a pretty good offensive team, and UNLV's not playing a lick of defense going on the road. Yeah, I like Utah State laying the points, and I like the game over the total there.
Boom. I like it, Ian. And Big Man, I'll start us off with best bets. I'm going to go to the Big Ten, Michigan State. We've had a lot of people in the chat box saying, that they are an auto bet. I would look to bet on them. I'd also look to bet them under the total. They've been on an under trend as well. They haven't let up more than 67 points in almost a month. And they played a lot better offenses than they're gonna play in Indiana tonight. Indiana defensively slows you down a little bit. I know they do push the pace, but I'm gonna ride this Michigan State train. Since they've had the injury, they've just been lower pace as far as their offensive tempo. So I'm gonna go Michigan State, Indiana under 142.5 at Bookmaker right now to start us off on best bets. Jeff, you want to go second? We got at Jeff Nadeau, the big man on campus. What do you got for best bets, man?
Yeah, I'm going to go real deep, guys, into my best bet today. I'm real deep in this one, but I'm going to tell you, this team is winning games right now. And, hey, listen, you guys know I like micro conferences. I like going small. You got to really try to find value, and that's all it's about. The key word here is value. Do you have any? That's the big question. I do. I'm going to get Norfolk State today at a pick'em against Howard University. Norfolk State, guys, has won 7 in a row in 8 of 10. And I want you all to look at their schedule. Do you see any bad losses here? Because I don't. I see a lot of Michigan, South Carolina, East Tennessee State, Stony Brook, Loyola Chicago, Rider, Kent State. I mean, none of these teams they should beat. They're in the MEAC, for God's sakes. They have no bad losses on this schedule. And they've won 7 in a row. This team is solid. They play good defense. And they just are winning right now. They're playing a Howard team that they should be able to beat. This team has had some good success lately. I like the mojo right now going in with Norfolk State. The Spartans are looking good. And they look like that team maybe that can go into the NCAA tournament, maybe knock someone off like their brethren did a couple years ago against the Missouri Tigers. Remember Kyle O'Quinn and the boys knocking off Missouri as a 15 seed? They have some real mojo right now. It's working. This should be a good game, but I think I'm going to ride with Norfolk State, who's 20th in the country, guys, in three-point percentage. How about that? A MEAC team that can shoot the ball. You don't see that very often. They're also 73% from the line. Robert Jones, this is the key in the MEAC, guys. If you can shoot, you will win games because they are a bad shooting conference, one of the worst in the country. I really like the way Robert Jones' team is playing right now. Give me the Norfolk State Spartans in a pick'em against the Howard Bison in Washington. Lock it up.
Norfolk State pick'em. Big man. Nice pick there. And got to hit the chat box. Rusty Shackelford said, Drew, where's 142.5 at? I'm looking at the SBR odds right now. It was 142.5 across the board for the Michigan State under. I'm seeing it still at Bookmaker and at Heritage. But if that's slow to move and it's not there, let me know. And I'll have to change it for the record keeping. But it is at 142.5 on SBR odds right now, Bookmaker and Heritage. Big man on campus, Norfolk State at Pick'em. Ian Cameron, in conclusion, you can follow him on at Babano on Twitter. He's a great follow. Ian, jump in with best bets, man.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little mathematics class with best bet. We're going to go to the San Francisco St. Mary's game in the West Coast Conference for best bet. We haven't talked about this game yet. I'm going to do A plus B equals C theory here in this game. When I look at it, St. Mary's recently went to Marriott Center, lost to BYU, didn't play well in that game at all. I don't think the St. Mary's team's quite as good as they've been in years past. We just saw, by the way, San Francisco in a recent game lose at home to Gonzaga, but take Gonzaga down to the wire. And they battled Gonzaga right down to the wire. And we just saw Gonzaga mop the floor with BYU, in the other night. Just absolutely took apart BYU. The same BYU team that beat St. Mary's. Bottom line is, put it all together. I'm not sure I trust St. Mary's laying 5.5. I like this San Francisco team a lot. They're going on the road. They haven't lost a road game in West Coast Conference play by more than this point spread. I like Frankie Ferrari, Ratinho. This is a very, very good team. This is one of the better San Francisco Dons teams. And based on the results I've seen lately, I'm of the firm belief right now, St. Mary's, we always say that Gonzaga and St. Mary's are right on this level, the same level. I think St. Mary's is a lot closer to the rest of the West Coast Conference. San Fran, Loyola Marymount, San Diego, they're much closer to where those teams are than where Gonzaga is. And I think San Francisco proves it today. I think they hang in this game, have a chance to win outright. The Dons, plus 5.5 for me. Best bet against St. Mary's.
All right, San Francisco plus 5.5 for Ian. Norfolk State pick'em for big man on campus. And Rusty was right; it has moved since start. So I'll have to go with 140 at Bet Online. Under in Michigan State, Indiana. Big man, any closing thoughts before we shut this down?
Yeah, actually, I do have a closing thought quickly. We obviously won't be on before the Super Bowl. There's 10,000 props, I think, on the board. Quickly, I really have to mention this because the line has went down, and I think a lot of it has been me driving the action down, guys. How about this? When I say things, people listen, it looks like. Will Bon Jovi be shown on TV? Yes, he will. Get on that. He is going to be shown. He will be there with our friend Robert Kraft. They're good friends. He's going to be shown on TV. It's down to plus 145. Get on it. It's on 5 Dimes bet number 555 under NFL props. It's plus money. I'm not sure why. He's going to be sitting next to Bob Kraft. Mark it down.
Big man, let me ask you this. Because I actually, Donnie Rightside and I were talking with Dave Mason, and he brought up the fact, does John Bon Jovi sit with him every game, or is it just like scattered for big games?
It's been lately he's been sitting with him in every game, and I read an article the other day about they're actually very good friends. Their wives hang out together. Bob Kraft is supposed to be a big Bon Jovi fan. They're good friends. And they've almost he's almost acted as kind of I think a good luck charm. I also have looked at other games, and generally he has people that are fans of the team, whether it, and it's usually like either, and it's Mark Wahlberg a lot of the time too, but I figure Bon Jovi's been there. I don't see he was there last game, and they won. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't. Living on a Prayer has been kind of their, quote unquote song the playoffs seems like. I think he'll definitely be shown. And you got to look at probability here. How many times are they going to show Bob Kraft? 2 or 3? I mean, we're going to have options here. Let's say maybe they don't show him, initially. Maybe he's up getting a meatball or something. He comes back. We might catch him on another. So we just need him during the broadcast. With how much they show Kraft, I think we'll have a real shot at this one, and it's plus money. Love those with the props.
Absolutely. And Ian, did you want to throw anything out before we shut this down?
Just in general, James White over props, Robert Woods over props. I like those both. I like Corey Littleton and Mark Barron on the Rams to have a ton of tackles. Their tackle props over. I like over 1.5 interceptions. I like there to be a 2-point conversion attempt. Yes, in the game, which is, I got it at plus money. It's now even money. I think the yes is a small favorite now, so you're not getting a good price anymore. But 2-point conversion attempt, yes. And the Rams will convert a 4th down. Yes is minus 110, right around even money. They will. They go for it on 4th down a lot. Fake punts. We see it all the time this season from the Rams. Johnny Hecker is a punter that is capable of throwing the football. We've seen that. Rams to convert a 4th down, yes, minus 110 like that. That's just a handful, but there you go. There's a bunch of props I'm on.
And Ian, why do you like the 2-point conversion attempt?
Because you got two aggressive well, especially on McVay's case. He will go for two when the opportunity arises. The attempt is what I like, though. I don't want to sweat whether it's a success or not, whether the 2-point conversion is good or not. You get a better price with a successful 2-point conversion, which is around plus 200 or so. The attempt is only plus 115, which is now even money. But just to have an attempt in the game, all you need is one of the two teams to have one 2-point conversion attempt in the game. I think it's very reasonable, very good chance we see it. That's why I'm on it.
And sidewise, are you involved?
Yeah, I'm going to bang my head against the wall and try bet against the Patriots again because I'm an idiot. No, and I probably just don't like them. But yeah, I'll be on the Rams here in this game.
Okay, and Big Man, what about you? Sidewise, are you involved?
Yeah, I'm still holding pat that I'm going to get 3 on this game. It hasn't shown up yet. In fact, bookmakers taking it down to 2. How about that? We might not ever see 3. Listen, in this game, I'm about the number. I'm not going to just bet it to bet it. We'll see how I feel. I think the Rams are the better overall team. I've talked about that. I think this game is going to be won on the interior defensive and offensive lines. If Ndamukong Suh and Dante Fowler and Aaron Donald can get pressure, Tom Brady has not been touched much, guys, this playoffs. If they can get to him, they will win. You look at guys, Jared Goff. He has fumbled in 8 straight games. 8. He cannot fumble in this game. Listen, the last 8 Super Bowls for the Patriots have all been decided by 8 points or less. I think we're going to have the opportunity to catch a ticket on the Rams. I think they're the better overall team. If they can run the football, they'll win. You cannot turn the football over if you're Goff. If you do, you'll lose. If you don't, I think you win.
One last thing, too, about this game. Jeff's point about the more talented team, I think, and I said this on many radio stations this week, if you grade out the personnel position for position, starter for starter, offense, defense, every position, I'd be drafting more LA Ram players on my team than New England Patriot players. That's the bottom line. But unfortunately, that doesn't mean the Rams are going to win the game because you still got Brady and Hoodie on the other side. I firmly understand that. But I would take more Ram players on my team than Patriot players on my team. And let's not forget, New England was this close. They were an Atlanta gag job away from 0-2 in the Super Bowl the last 2 years. Keep that in mind.
Great way to end it, Ian. For Big Man on Campus, follow him on Twitter at Jeff Nadeau, Ian Cameron at Babano, myself at Drew Martin Bets. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Best of luck with your bets. We'll see you tomorrow for the Betcast on the SBR YouTube channel. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Good luck this weekend.